I've loved vampire stories for a very long time. I was born in 1995, so Twilight was a big deal when I was in middle school, like it was for everyone around my age group. And my fascination with vampire stories has never fizzled out. So when I was reading Grave Peril and I saw vampires, like there are some vampires in early installments of the series, but they're just kind of like mentioned slightly. But Grave Peril, the plot of it is very much centered around vampires. And even though there was vampires included, I had such a hard time struggling through this book. Hello! Welcome or welcome back. Today I'm very excited to be discussing Grave Peril by Jim Butcher, the third installment of the Dresden Files. I've been reading this book since the end of September. It took me several months to finally get through this one, and it's not that many pages, 440-ish pages, and a book shouldn't take that long. That being said, I did have an overall good experience with Grave Peril, but there was some big problems that I had, and I'm going to use this video as an opportunity to talk about some of my main issues I have with the Dresden Files, and why I probably will be needing to take a little bit of a break from this series if I want to continue on with this journey. Let me start off by talking about what I enjoyed about Grave Peril. Harry Dresden is a humorous protagonist. And the supporting cast of characters that are introduced in Grave Peril were pretty compelling. I will say the characters that are mainstays in all three novels so far, I don't find them very interesting in the slightest, except for maybe Bob. I don't like a lot of the main characters, the carryover characters. But the characters that were introduced just for the plot of Grave Peril, I found to be pretty interesting and quite compelling. And I do hope they continue to make appearances throughout the series. One thing I did really like about Grave Peril is that the world and the story is expanding. The previous two installments in the Dresden Files were very much standalone novels. The story begins, everything in that story was resolved, and you don't need to read the next installment to see what happens next. But Grave Peril is different. Yes, the vast majority of the plot points are resolved in the story, but there's still some things that we need to pick up the next installments to understand. And that's interesting. The world is expanding. When I picked up the Dresden Files, I was told the first few novels are a little rough because they're just like every other urban fantasy story from the same time period. They're mystery novels, and then the mysteries are kind of shallow because at the end, the answer was magic. Magic that the reader did not understand. But I am very interested to see how the Dresden Files grows to be a more expansive fantasy work, and you're starting to see those things foreshadowed at the end of Grave Peril. So I'm pretty happy about that. There are two things in particular that I didn't like about Grave Peril. And there are two things that were prevalent in the previous two novels, but I think it finally got to me. I think I finally reached my limit in Grave Peril. And the first one of those two things is this. Harry Dresden is an incredibly wishy-washy, whiny, inconsistent protagonist. And what do I mean by that? Every installment of the Dresden Files so far, Harry is like experiencing inner turmoil because he has to defeat this evil entity in every book. But then while he's fighting these evil entities, he can't do it on his own. So he brings his friends, he brings his allies into the battle with him. And the entire time he's like, why did I bring them into this battle? What if something were to happen to insert name here? I could never forgive myself. I should have just done this on my own, even though I know I would have died if I would have done it on my own. I can't bring them into this because they're not ready. They're not powerful enough. While also being like, I can't do this on my own. I'm too weak. Why am I doing this? And then also another inconsistent thing about him, he doesn't want to use magic to hurt people. He doesn't want to use magic to kill the big bads. And I'm like, dude, then why are you fighting them? What makes you think they're going to play by the rules? You're fighting evil. You're the good guy. You both are using magic for different reasons. You're probably going to have to use your magic to defeat these people that are more powerful than you. But he's always seemed so conflicted and surprised by it. And it bugs me. Harry's just not grown at all throughout these three novels yet. And he's just incredibly wishy-washy. And I just like, are you like an authority in this world or are you not? Because it seems very clear to me as the reader that like you're probably in the wrong line of work if you have all these conflicts of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. The second thing that bugs me about Grave Peril and the Dresden Files as a whole so far is Sally and Murphy are very important supporting characters. But they also, like Harry, have showed very little character development. And one thing I think that bugs me in particular about these two characters, mostly Murphy. Sally's probably grown the most out of the three characters I'm talking about. But our characters are dealing with life and death consequences. And Harry and Murphy and Sally, they've all saved each other a few times, numerous times. And maybe I'm a little naive, but I believe if someone saved my life, I would just trust them, especially if they saved my life several times. But despite the fact that Harry has saved Murphy's butt several times at this point already, she's very hesitant to trust him. She always is suspicious of like what he's doing, what his motivations are. And he's like, Murphy, don't do this. A bad thing will happen. And she's like, how can I trust you, Dresden? Bad thing happens. And she doesn't learn her lesson. So maybe not so much Sally. But Murphy bugs me immensely. And Sally also just doesn't believe how dangerous things are when Harry tells her. She has to see it for herself. And I'm like, dude, you guys are muggles. You know, you're non-magical people in a magical setting. And you know just such a small iota of what you would need to know to survive and navigate these magical, like, occurrences, these magical events, these magical catastrophes. And you're still like, nah, I'm not going to trust the wizard and his expert knowledge. So what are my hopes for the future of the Dresden Files? Well, I definitely think I'm going to have to take at least 5 or 6 months off from this series because I'm hoping that distance and time will help my heart grow more fond for this series. I want to have a softening of my soul towards the Dresden Files. And when I pick it back up, I hope I get to see some character development from Harry, Sally, and Murphy. But I definitely need it from Harry. I can deal with annoying female protagonists who are characters in a fantasy series from the early 2000s. Every series from that time period, for the most part, had annoying female supporting characters. But I need Dresden to develop. I need him to figure out who he is and figure out what the line in the sand is for him. Because I'm not buying the inner turmoil that Harry Dresden is suffering through. So that's what I'm hoping for the future of the Dresden Files. And if you have any words of advice, words of encouragement about the series, tell me, leave them in the comments below, because I'm really looking for any reason, any little motivation to get me to continue on with this series, because right now I'm finding that motivation severely lacking. Thank you guys for watching this book review video / rant. If you liked it, push the little thumbs up icon below. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear me talk about any other books. And I'll talk to you guys next time.